Celtics fans, your team could be making a huge trade at the NBA trade deadline this year as Charania just comes out with a monster report about your Boston Celtics. We'll talk about it on today's show. But before we do, if you guys want the Celtics to go out there and make a big-time trade, get over the hump, and maybe win an NBA championship in what many people are calling a gap year, do one thing for me. Go down below and hit that thumbs up icon like today's video. What's going on, Green Teamers? You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Smith, and Charania, the biggest NBA insider in the world, just came out with a big-time report about your Boston Celtics and their plans at the 2026 trade deadline, which we're just 1 week away from at the time of recording this video. Shams saying the following. They've been in the marketplace, the Boston Celtics have, trying to go get a big-time starting center potentially. They're going to get aggressive in moving the needle. They've got assets. They've got contracts to play with. This comes a couple days after Zach Lowe just went and said the Celtics would be buyers at the trade deadline. This is awesome. This is really, really great news here for Celtics fans who many believe didn't think this team is going to be as good as it is. Second place in the Eastern Conference at this point. Jayson Tatum on the cusp of returning. So why not go out there when you have contracts on your books to make a deal? Yeah, go improve this roster. And Evan Siddery just said the following as well. The Celtics are shopping Anthony Simons' $27.6 million expiring contract for an impact starting center. So it's Shams saying it, Zach Lowe's saying it, other insiders are saying it as well. It says Boston has inquired on Ivica Zubac, Nic Claxton, Onyeka Okongwu, and Daniel Gafford during trade season. We'll talk about all these names on today's show. Let's start with Zubac because that's been a name that's been circling around Celtics trade rumors for the better part of the entire season so far. And we just heard a new report come in from, I believe it was Michael Scotto over at Hoops Hype, at the Celtics and Clippers did talk about a Ivica Zubac trade for Anthony Simons. Boston would be sending away a pick swap, a first-round pick swap for the future as well, but the Clippers were not interested in that offer, and that came way before this big-time turnaround that Los Angeles has had. Zubac has been awesome, man, averaging a double-double this season. You know it's a walk-in 15 and 10 when he steps onto the court. He's an excellent shot blocker as well, a really elite offensive rebounder, which is what the Celtics are lacking on their roster at this point. He's incredibly efficient from the field, but he's not going to operate too much outside of the paint. Zubac, one of the best screen centers in all of basketball. That's been a huge reason the Celtics have been as successful as they have been this year. And I think he would fit magnificently on the Jays timeline. 28 years old, making less than $20 million a season. I'm all for bringing Zubac to Boston. Jay King has this to say on this scenario. He said it's unclear whether the Clippers' big man will be available. If he is, he could be an ideal target. If Zubac is available, he would likely require the Celtics to part ways with significant draft capital. Still, if he's the missing piece, he would be worth it. Now, that offer that Boston had of, if that's even true, Simons and a first-round pick swap down the line, I mean, I think that's Brad Stevens shooting a little bit low and seeing where they could end up. But I think it's all unlikely because even that offer that probably would have required an additional first-round pick or two in the deal, that was made way back before the Clippers made this massive turnaround, winning 15 or 16 of their last 19 games or something like that. It's really historic. They're making a playoff run now, and Zubac is a big part of it. So I think it's an unlikely target. Even though the Clippers reportedly like Anthony Simons, they don't like him enough to be trading Zubac away when they're playing as well as they have over the past few weeks. Let's talk about Nic Claxton a little bit, a guy who's making $25 million a year this year, and a guy who's been in Celtics trade rumors for the past few as they've been looking for that new starting center of the future. Am I that enthusiastic about trading for Nic Claxton, a guy who you'd also have to send away first-round draft capital for, and he makes $25 million? I don't know if that's the most ideal situation for Boston to be in, but there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He can play, and he's not averaging the best numbers of his career for this season. 13 points per game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists is something that I think has become really underrated as a part of Nic Claxton's game here. He's taking the ball up more often than I've ever seen him do in his career this year in Brooklyn. He is kind of initiating the offense over there. He's working out of the high post a lot more. Not necessarily a 3-level scorer or anything like that. He's not going to go out there and extend his range or get out the paint much, but his vision on the court has taken a big-time leap this season, and that's what Boston wants in a center. Somebody who can rebound the basketball, block shots, that's probably Nic Claxton's best attribute, and be able to keep the ball moving and keep things moving around the court quickly. I think Claxton could do that for the Celtics team. But he makes a lot of money, man. The good part is it is decreasing in value. It is a front-loaded contract, so he's going to be making less than $21 million in 2028, and that's going to look a lot better in terms of where the NBA salary cap is at this point, plus when Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown's contracts get up there in price as well. What would a potential framework look like for Nic Claxton to be to the Boston Celtics here? Well, it would take Anthony Simons. It would take a first-round pick, and then probably Baylor Scheierman as well. Look, I would probably part ways with all this for Claxton, but you would be stuck with him as your starting center here for the next few seasons, unless you find another trade partner for him. I would bring in Nic Claxton, but I'd be hesitant to give up this much in a trade with Brooklyn. With that being said, would you make the deal? A for accept, D for decline on Nic Claxton to Boston for Anthony Simons' expiring contract, Baylor Scheierman, but a first-round pick would have to be included in the deal. A for accept, D for decline. Comment down below. Now, coming up next, we're going to talk about some more centers that can be linked to your Boston Celtics, some stuff that Evan Siddery mentioned, and maybe some other Celtics trade targets that are a little bit lesser in the price tag and what the asking price would be in a trade. We'll talk about that in a moment. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor, as this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. With the big game approaching, this is the last chance for you guys to get involved in the football action on the best daily fantasy sports app in the game, where it's always good to be right, and that's PrizePicks. All you guys got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats, and you can get up to $50 instantly in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. You just got to use our promo code CLNS that you can see in the bottom right of your screen. PrizePicks is the best because they offer the best features, like stacks. So if you wanted to take multiple stat projections from the same player and put it in the same lineup, you could do so only on PrizePicks. You can also copy other players' picks as well, whether it's a friend, a celebrity, another creator like me. You can copy our picks and put them into your own using the brand new feed tab. Also, PrizePicks has a new feature called early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start or your player gets off to a hot start, you have the chance to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So don't waste any more time. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Let's talk a little bit about Onyeka Okongwu here, the former Chino Hills star, the LaMelo Ball high school teammate with Lonzo and LiAngelo and that whole crew out there in Cali. Onyeka Okongwu is making a name for himself, though, in the NBA now, making $15 million a season. That's around the price tag that I would try to target here if the Celtics want to not only upgrade in the front court, but also maybe bump down that tax bill a little bit like we've been hearing so much about. Okongwu, though, he's a good player, man. I know he's not maybe the most traditional center, not the best rebounder in the world, only averages 8 a game, even though that's nothing to scoff at. But this guy can put the ball in the cup. Has really, really expanded his offensive game year in and year out in his NBA career. Now shooting nearly league average from three-point range, 37%, 16 points a night. He can put the ball on the deck and attack the rim too. And he's not the worst shot blocker either. Averages over a block a night, which is really, really good to see. And one thing we know about Brad Stevens and the way that he makes Celtics trades and some of the targets that he has is because of guys who end up balling out against the Boston Celtics. Okongwu has done just that. In the last 5 games played against the Boston Celtics, Onyeka Okongwu has averaged 19 points per game, 9 boards, over a block, and shot at a 37% clip from three-point range. Sounds like somebody that Brad would want to bring in to the mix here. Now, as far as Okongwu's future goes with the Atlanta Hawks, Kelly Iko, an NBA insider over at Yahoo Sports, had this to say on the situation. Saying the Hawks, according to conversations with rival executives, agents, and former players, are unsure of the long-term prospects of Onyeka Okongwu and Gueye at center from a contention standpoint. So look, I get it. Okongwu isn't the most down low, move guys around, like traditional center that you're looking at here. But he's a floor spacer, and he would be conducive to what Joe Mazzulla wants to do offensively on this team. He can be improved as a rebounder as well, as a screener. I'm in on bringing Okongwu to Boston. I'm curious to see what the price tag would look like, but he doesn't make too much money to where it would be a terrible commitment financially from my point of view. Now, you know who definitely wouldn't be a crazy financial commitment? Yves Missi. Like, that's a guy who isn't making a whole lot of money at this point. He isn't really getting a ton of run with the New Orleans Pelicans. So with him being a reported trade target, I've heard some NBA insiders on Twitter talk about Yves Missi. But this could be another Brad Stevens reclamation project. This is somebody that we see get all added to the Boston Celtics time and time again. Neemias Queta, Josh Minott, Luka Garza, just to name a few, this season alone of reclamation projects by Brad Stevens. He was a 2024 first-round pick. He was a little bit raw coming out and really hasn't been given the right development down in New Orleans. I think the Celtics could do that a lot better. And reports have come out saying the Pelicans have made him available for a trade after falling out of the rotation behind Kevon Looney and Derek Queen up there at the center spot in New Orleans. Like, this is the buy low move that we've heard about with Boston. If they don't end up getting a guy like Zubac or a guy like Gafford or Okongwu or any of these big names, they could go after a buy low guy like an Yves Missi, who, look, through 2 seasons hasn't been the overall best. He hasn't seen crazy opportunity this season, playing less than 20 minutes a night. But in those 20 minutes, he's getting 6 boards. He's averaging over a block a game. So I'm not too mad at this potential addition here, although he's not the most efficient guy for a guy who's not necessarily a floor spacer out there. So I'd be in on bringing Yves Missi to town, but it's not going to cost too much, so it wouldn't be the biggest risk in the world for Boston to bring him in if it doesn't end up working out. Now, there's always my other buy low candidate, Sharpe, who is an absolute advanced stats demon. If you look at his per 36, if you look at his per 100 possessions, it's all insane. His offensive rebound percentage is literally breaking scales. I would be in, but sometimes I watch Sharpe. I know it's crazy. I watch some Brooklyn Nets basketball, and he doesn't look all that impactful out there to me. Wouldn't cost too much. Only 24 years old. Still has a lot of room to grow in his NBA career. I think that could be with the Boston Celtics. And you can't leave this show without talking about Triple J. The name that's getting thrown around there, Matt Moore of Hardwood Paroxysm says Boston would love to add Jaren Jackson Jr. There's nobody who's more interested in Jaren Jackson Jr. than the Boston Celtics. So he's out there, but again, not the most traditional big. Very big-time isolation scorer. Not going to be banging down low with the other bigs in this league. So I'm hesitant. He makes a lot of money and would probably command the basketball a lot as well. With that being said, name a big man the Celtics should trade for. Who is your guy? We just listed a bunch of big names, a small name as well with Yves Missi and Sharpe. Who's the guy that you think the Celtics are going to trade for at that big man spot this deadline? Comment down below, as that will do it for today's show. Make sure you give me a follow over on Twitter at Tyler J. Smith. 2 H's because the name's common, but I am not. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. YouTube.com/CelticsTV for the latest and greatest on your Boston Celtics all season long. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, let's go C's.